welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a t-shirt DIY, and this particular design I pulled from my shop, and I really hope that I have modified it enough to make it gender neutral, because originally it had a sweetheart neckline. That's not going to work on a guy, so I'm really hoping that this works. If it doesn't, I'm going to show you a hack on how to modify it to make it a little bit different so you don't shred it all the way across. So what you're going to need, your scissors, dressmaker's chalk or white eyeliner, and of course we can't forget our t-shirt. So this top in particular that I'm going to show you is actually featured in Gothic Beauty magazine. Something really cool that happened by way of my shop is that I got asked to be in Gothic Beauty magazine twice. So I was in issue number 35 and number 38. And I'm going to actually show you the pictures that were in there, but the one that we're going to be doing, I'm probably going to have to just take a picture and then put it into the video. But let's see, yeah, the glare is a bit much. But this is the design that we're going to be doing right here. Unfortunately, there's a massive glare. Maybe if I put it like against me like that. Like this. Eventually, I will sort my life out and figure out how to figure out this goddamn lighting. Something else that was pretty cool that happened by way of my shop is one of my customers was Kat Von D. And it was really cool because a lot of times when you're a fan of someone or something, you'll sort of adopt that name as a username. And I would get that a lot on Etsy. Like I would get people like using the name Lacuna Coil or something like that, you know, because it would happen to be their favorite band. But when I saw Kat Von D, obviously I didn't think much of it until it was time to actually send the item out once her top was done. And when I look, I actually saw that it was going to High Voltage Tattoo in Hollywood, and I was like, holy shit, that is Kat Von D. So what I didn't realize is that she was ordering the top because she was doing a makeup tutorial for her makeup line to be featured on Sephora's channel, and I'm actually going to link you to that video below so you can see the top that I had made her. But that's something that was actually really cool that happened. Alright, so with all of that fun stuff being said, why don't we get to the DIY? The first thing you're going to want to do is cut the hem off of the bottom of the t-shirt. After you cut off the hem, you're going to find that there might be some jagged edges, but even if there isn't, what you want to do is you're going to stretch the bottom out, and as you can see, the ends curl up, creating a nice even seam. Okay, so first we're going to turn the shirt inside out, and we're going to mark just below, probably about 3 inches where your bust ends, because we don't want puppies' noses peeking out, or the bottom of your boobies unless you're into the whole bottom cleavage thing, or of course if you're a guy. So we're going to mark just below it, but as with everything, whenever I draw a line, I'm always going to cut about a 1/2 inch below that, because what always ends up happening when you wash it or when you tug it, because when we tug it, we're creating sort of a makeshift seam, you're going to lose a little bit, probably about a 1/2 inch exactly, so you're going to get it where you want. Now this line that I'm drawing is where the 90s graphic just starts, because we're going to be cutting shreds into the top, and I don't want to cut into the graphic. Next, you want to fold the shirt completely in half, making sure that all the seams are aligned. Then, we're going to go into the middle of the t-shirt, seams facing outward, and draw about 2.5 inches, that looks about 2.5 inches, and draw a line downward, which is going to go straight down the middle of the t-shirt. Now that we have our lines in place, the center line is going to be a guide of where not to cut, and this top line is going to be a line of where to cut, but we're going to stop at the center line. You'll see what I mean. While it's already folded in half, we're actually going to go ahead and fold it in half again. Part of the prep work for folding in half is making sure that the seams are completely aligned, and one of the reasons being is we want perfect symmetry. We're basically doing what is the lazy man's cut. This one cut is going to cut left side and right side, front and back, all in one go. So not starting on the line that we created, you want to go just below. We're basically going to be creating ribs. So just below this, you're going to start cutting, but not all the way toward the middle white line. Because if you do, you risk cutting into the side seam, and we want this to be a no-sew project, and it's going to be a pain in the butt if you have to actually go back in and re-secure the side seam. So we're going to cut all the way down to the bottom. carefully so as not to cut yourself. You want to pay attention to how the shirt feels at the bottom as you make your way toward the hem, because when you make a makeshift hem the way that we did by cutting off the original hem, what can end up happening is that the seam becomes wonky and then one side will differ from the other. So what had happened is, as you can see on one side, the seam is completely fine, and on the other, there's definitely enough room for another strip. Just isolate the top 2 layers that are too thick and then snip them individually from the other 4. Onto the chest. We're going to be cutting vertical strips into the neckline, and here's the line that we created to show exactly where the 90s graphic begins. So pinch it, and then we're going to flip it. Here's the neckband. Be mindful of the neckband and flip it over so we can see exactly where we're cutting so we don't cut into the 90s graphic. So being mindful of where the neckband is, we're only going to be doing little cuts initially, because when we flip this back over, we're going to be making bigger cuts. However, there's so many things we need to be mindful of first. First, the graphic, then the neckband. As you can see, I pretty much snipped it, so I have to kind of go in upside down here. So as you can see, I'm being super careful of the neckband. Another thing you have to be careful of are the shoulder seams. This whole process is basically avoiding every possible seam and neckband and everything else because we want it to be a threadless adventure. Now that the cuts are in place, what you want to do is going upward first, take it as high as you possibly can without nicking the shoulder seam. Just as we did as we were cutting upward, we're going to do the same thing going downward. You want to keep it just to the front layer of the shirt. So we're going to go toward the white line and try to keep it as straight across as humanly possible. Next, you're going to flip over the shirt, and as you can see from looking at the back, the cuts aren't as big. So now you're going to basically do the same thing to the back as you did to the front, and that's pretty much it. The sleeves are a bit tricky considering it's a little bit of a smaller area and it's also cut on an angle, so it's hard to get straight seams when you're folding it up because normally you have to align the seams in order to get an even cut. It's not going to work this way, so we're going to have to actually do it in 2 parts. So you're going to fold it in half, and you're going to notice that not all seams are going to align. So it's either going to be the armpit seams that line up or it's going to be the shoulder seams. You want to choose the shoulder seams. So once that is folded and the shoulder seams are aligned, you're actually going to start cutting at the shoulder, working inward toward the armpit. As you start cutting at the shoulder, you're going to work your way inward, but you're going to stop about 2.5 to 3 inches before you reach the armpit, because when you get to that point, like I said, the seams won't align and you'll end up cutting into the seam itself. So make sure you don't cut into the hem or you don't cut into the seam. So at this point, you're going to pinch the fabric upward and make a few snips here. And then after that, what we're going to do is we're going to go back in, starting again from the shoulder, and work your way up to the shoulder seam. Then just repeat the process on the other sleeve. This part's kind of fun because this is where you're going to actually stretch out the strips, but you have to be super careful so as not to actually snap the strips. They're a little bit delicate. So you reach your hands on the inside and just pull it outward, and what this does is it creates a sort of makeshift hem, and it takes the ends and it curls them upward. So you know when you're cut and you never quite get a straight line, you get some jaggy pieces? Well, this conceals them because it curls them inward. Therefore, you don't have to worry about any jagged pieces, and it just makes it look very clean and even. So you want to be a little bit more careful with the neckline because the strips are thinner, therefore they're more delicate. So what you want to do is stick your arm through from one sleeve almost to the other, and then stick your fingers into the bottom of the strips and then pull downward, and this will stretch them out. And the same applies to the sleeves. And we're all done.